Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Working Conversations. Today, I'm going to tell you about a situation that happened to me recently and what the organization should have done differently. I made a call to customer service of an organization that I'm a customer of, and I needed to submit a form on their website. I had gone through the form, filled out all the pages of the form, and there were multiple pages to this form. And when I got to the very last page where I hit submit, the submit button didn't work. Now, the slightly good news in this story is that at least I was able to save my work, so I didn't have to go back and redo all of that work, but the submit button didn't work. I tried multiple browsers, I tried the mobile version, I tried everything, but that dang submit button didn't work. So I called up the customer service number and explained to the person who answered the phone what the problem was. This was their response to me. Yeah, we know it doesn't work. It hasn't been working for a while now. Our IT team is really behind on this. They're really in over their heads right now. We know it's a problem. Why don't you wait and try tomorrow? Because maybe they'll have it fixed by then. I was dumbfounded. And then I suggested that they should send out an email to their customer base letting us know that this was an issue. You know what he said to me then? He said this. He said, yeah, I agree with you, but it's probably not going to happen. Our communication to our customers is really bad. I was horrified that this was the case. I was even more horrified. I was horrified that the submit button didn't work and it wasn't going to be working for a while, but I was even more horrified that the person on the phone told me that the IT team was in over their heads and that their organization is bad at communicating with the customers. I kind of knew they were bad at communicating with the customers based on what he was telling me, but it struck me as really unprofessional. And it got me thinking about this question. Who is it appropriate to tell which information to? And I'm going to break it down for you today and give you a tool for deciding who you tell what. And it's called levels of discretion. So this is, for when you need to be discreet about certain information with certain people or audiences. It's also about exercising sound judgment about who gets told what. And as their customer, I should not have been told most of what he told me on the phone. So as you think about this, an overriding question to ask yourself, and you're going to hear me say this question over and over in this podcast today, the overriding question to ask yourself is this: does it serve the other person to know this? We're going to talk through 5 different levels of discretion. And again, that overriding question, does it serve the other person to know this, is going to keep coming up. So if you don't remember all 5 levels, don't worry about it, although they are in the show notes. But you can just come back to this question. Does it serve the other person to know this? So level of discretion 1, level 1, are things you keep to yourself. Let's say your coworker makes a mistake and then fixes it before anyone else notices. No one was harmed, it didn't hurt your customers, and you can help your coworker save face. There's no need to tell anyone. Just keep it to yourself. Don't gossip to your coworkers about it. Don't tell your friends about it. Just keep it to yourself. Here's another, maybe more personal example from the workplace. And this goes back to a job that I was in where I'm going to call this person Mike Wazowski, from the movie Monsters, Inc. So my coworker, Mike Wazowski, always used to tell me way too much information about the women that he was dating. Gross. I did not need to know that about him. And I kept that at level 1 information. I'm going to keep it to myself. And then also go a step further and tell him that's way too much information, TMI. Again, does it serve the other person to know this? Did it serve me to know all that information about his dating life? No, it did not. Again, your coworker makes a mistake and fixes it. Does it serve somebody else for you to tell them about it? Now, maybe there is a lesson to be learned in the coworker's mistake, in which case you could perhaps extrapolate that information or even encourage your coworker to share that information with the rest of the team so that the same mistake doesn't get made again. But again, the overriding question, does it serve the other person to know this? Now let's go on to level 2, level of discretion. This is where you share information with a colleague. Probably somebody who is directly involved with the situation or somebody who's at the same level of the organization as you. Let's say that my coworker Maureen is not getting me the data that I need to have to get my TPS reports in on time. I'm going to use sound judgment here, and I'm going to approach Maureen directly. There's no need for me to talk to anyone else about this at this point until I've addressed it with Maureen. So I'm going to address it directly with Maureen, and I'm going to, in a very matter-of-fact language, explain to her what I need and why I need it and when I need it. Don't complain about the person behind their back. Don't report them to the boss. Just simply be clear and direct and kind. Always be kind. Here would be another example of level 2. Let's say a coworker comes to you with a problem. Maybe it's a work problem, maybe it's a personal problem, and you help them with it. So let's say it's a work problem. They're having trouble managing a difficult client relationship, and they want your advice. They want your input because they think maybe you've experienced something like this before and you've got some insights for them. Then help them and keep it between the two of you. Hold their confidence. Or let's say they come to you with a personal situation. Maybe they've got a health situation and they just feel the need to tell someone else at work. It's not impacting their work right now, but it might in the future. They might have to take some time off to deal with it, and they just want to be understood by somebody they work with, and so they tell you. Again, your job, level 2, level of discretion, you're going to keep that to yourself and hold their confidence. You might be tempted to tell another coworker, whether it's about helping them with a difficult client relationship, or you might also be tempted to tell somebody else about the health situation. But in this case, you want to ask yourself that ever important question. Does it serve the other person to know this? So would it serve somebody else, one of your other colleagues, if you shared that information? Probably not. You might also put that question back on the person who told you the information. Would it serve your colleague who confided in you to tell other people about it? And the answer to that one is pretty clear. Absolutely not. So that's level 2, where you're going to share that information with a colleague or somebody else at your same level of the organization. Level 3 is information that you would need to share with your boss. This is something that you basically need to kick it up a level to a different level of leadership or responsibility. So let's go back to the earlier example of Maureen not getting me the information I need for my TPS reports. Let's say that I've addressed Maureen directly and I haven't gotten anywhere, and now I'm starting to take some heat from our boss because I'm not getting my TPS reports in on time. Again, I've already addressed it directly with Maureen, maybe even several times, and I'm not getting anywhere. Now it's time to share with the boss. Again, using sound judgment, and I want to share that information as neutrally as possible. Just stick to the facts. Don't throw Maureen under the bus. Just share the facts. Another example might be if a client is being overly demanding or abusive, you might also need to share that with the boss. Or if a colleague is being unprofessional to you, and again, you've tried to deal with it yourself, then that is something that you could take to level 3 discretion, share it with the boss. And here is the question you're asking yourself. Does it serve the other person, in this case, the boss? Does it serve the boss to know this? If it is a situation that they need to now be addressing from their level of leadership, then absolutely they need to know that information so that they can do their job, because part of their job is making sure you have the resources and the environment to do yours. So that's level 3. You're going to share it with your boss. Level 4 level of discretion is information you need to share with your team, or perhaps more broadly with your whole organization, especially if you're a leader. What information needs to get cascaded out to the organization? Level 4 information is meant to be kept internally and not shared with the customer. Level 4 information is to be kept within the team or the organization. So the customer service call that I mentioned earlier, that information should have been kept inside the organization. The IT team, and perhaps more broadly across the organization, including customer service and so forth, needed to know that information. And the IT team being really behind, being shared with me, that information being shared with me was absolutely a breach of level 4. They should have kept that information to themselves. It should have been shared widely within the organization, as well as including a communication plan for how to cascade that information out to the customers and the exact words to use when sharing it with the customers. It should not have been shared with me in the way it was. It came off as incredibly unprofessional. And, unfortunately, I don't have a choice of vendors for this particular organization I'm working with. They are the only one who do what I need done. And anyway, it was very, very unfortunate, but it was absolutely a breach of level 4. It should have been shared widely within the organization and not shared with the customers. Because frankly, if you ask yourself, does it serve the other person to know this? Does it serve me as their customer to know that information? Absolutely not. Again, I don't have a choice in vendors for this service, so I have to stay with them. But it certainly does not instill confidence in me as their customer to know that their IT team is swamped and couldn't get this problem fixed in a timely fashion, and that their communication to their customers stinks. It does not serve me to know this, especially to hear this directly from somebody within the organization. So that's level 4, where the information gets shared with your team or your organization, especially if you're a leader in the organization. Level 5 level of discretion information is that information that you tell everyone, including your customers. And let me give you a really good example from this last holiday season. When ordering online from just about all the retailers that I ordered gifts from during the holiday season, I received this message. Please accept our apologies. You may experience delays in shipping. Our shipping services are experiencing higher than demand volume, and your package may be delayed. That was a great example of level 5 information where it was, unfortunately some information that was not pleasing information to receive, but at least they were proactively and preemptively communicating that there may be a delay in packaging, in shipping. So when things should be kept at a lower level, let's say that kind of internal information, when that gets shared at a higher level, like the customer experience situation I found myself in recently, where I was told that the IT team was way behind and that their communication to their customers was lousy, it's typically because the customer service representative is frustrated. I can promise you that I was not the first caller with that issue that customer service representative handled that day. I could tell from the exasperation in his voice that I was probably somewhere around the 100th customer that had called with that. And I mean, sometimes it's simply because the customer service representative doesn't know any better, but often it is because they are so far at their wits' end, and from that place at their wits' end, they are no longer using sound judgment. So that customer service representative did not ask himself, does it serve this person to know this? Does it serve the caller to know this? I can guarantee you he did not ask himself that question. Now, before we leave this topic entirely, I want to share one other twist on this, one other type of a breach of levels of discretion that I hear about from time to time. And in fact, I've experienced it myself when I was in corporate life. It's when someone who is junior in the organization, let's say lower on the organizational chart, sometimes much lower, is told something from a senior leader that they really should not be privy to. So here, let's put an example to it. Let's say that the chief marketing officer, we'll call him Brent, has their favorite graphic designer, let's call him Tom, who always produces excellent work. And so they have a very trusting relationship. Brent always knows that if Tom is the graphic designer on a particular project, that the work is going to get done well, it's going to be creative, innovative, and it's really going to accomplish all of their marketing objectives. So let's say Brent, our CMO friend, is frustrated by the chief financial officer's behavior lately. And our CMO friend Brent goes ahead and tells our graphic designer Tom all about that frustration. That is totally inappropriate. It has put our graphic designer friend Tom in a very compromising position, a very uncomfortable position, knowing this information about the chief financial officer. And because there's a power differential here where our friend Brent, the chief marketing officer, is far higher above Tom on the organizational chart, it's going to put Tom in again, a very uncomfortable position. He might not say anything. He might not express his discomfort with knowing that information. Now, if you find yourself in that situation where you're Tom, you're the far junior person, and a senior leader is telling you something that they probably shouldn't tell you, if you can address it and spark a little humor to deflect it a little bit by saying something like, I'm going to pretend you didn't just say that because it's probably not something I should know. Or something along those lines that will help diffuse the situation. And it will also help the person who is senior to you in a very non-threatening way know that that was probably not information that they should be sharing with you and that they should exercise a little bit more discretion. Let's review all 5 levels of discretion. And as we do so, please keep in mind the root of the word discretion is discreet. This is really about being discreet and asking yourself the question, with whom should I be discreet about this information? Level 1, this is information that I keep to myself. Does it serve anybody else to know this? No. This is information I need to keep to myself. If I share it, it could be gossipy or TMI or worse. Level 2, this is information I'm going to share with a colleague. Ideally, a colleague who is directly involved in the situation. Ideally, the person that we can sort it out with or that we can learn from. Level 3 is information you're going to share upward in the organization, presumably to your immediate supervisor or manager. And again, you're asking yourself, does it serve my boss to know this? Remember that your boss is the manager of people, and sometimes they can't see everything in the organization, and there may be information you do need to share with them. Level 4, this is information I'm going to share more widely. I need to share this with my team or organization, especially if I'm a leader. But this information could also come from an individual contributor when they recognize that it does need to be shared more widely in the organization. And ideally, that's going to be done in conjunction with their boss or supervisor. And then level 5, this is information that you're going to tell widely. You're going to tell everyone, including your customers. And if this is difficult information, you're going to have a communication plan that spells out exactly how you're going to be communicating that to your customers, right down to the very vocabulary, the very words you are going to use to share that information. So the bottom line in all of this, the big question to always be asking yourself, again, if you don't remember those 5 distinct levels of discretion, just ask yourself this question. Does it serve the other person to know this? Does it serve the other person if I share this information with them? Now, again, I'm listing these levels of discretion in the show notes so that you can come back to them and refer to them as needed. You can find the show notes for this episode at workingconversations.com/6 for episode 6. And if you know someone who would benefit from knowing more about the levels of discretion, please share this podcast with them. Now, until next time, go on and get after it.